I kind of wanted to talk about a topic that I feel like isn't like either talked about enough or it's not recognized enough, and it's this topic of how like building muscle and building strength sort of go together, but they sort of like are two different things at the same time. Um, like for powerlifting and bodybuilding are two different things. Um, like it matters towards the end of the competition or like towards the end of the training cycle what you're doing. So like if you're doing bodybuilding, you would be having a lot of muscle and then you'd be leaning down towards the end of the competition. If you were doing powerlifting, you'd be peaking out your strength towards the end of the competition and doing like strength, very little training, very high intensity weights, training less, and kind of getting your 1 rep maxes on the 3 lifts as strong as possible. So people kind of forget that they're two different things, and that I mean, the stereotype is kind of that, oh, you're super muscular, you must be really strong. But it's funny that when you are the most muscular, a lot of the time you're not that strong, because if you're training to look muscular and have big muscles, then you kind of have to train a little more, and maybe have higher frequency, maybe a little lighter weights, and it's like you're not as optimal for when you're gonna have the most optimal strength, which is gonna be when you're a little more rested. You're maybe training a little bit less. You're maybe training with a little like higher intensity and heavier weight. Um, the lesson too is that you can't be good at everything at the same time. You can be good at many things, but you have to specialize at one at a time, and then kind of maintain that if you want to grow something else. So like you can, I mean, Stan Efferding said this, that like he had become a champion in bodybuilding and powerlifting, but he said that he didn't do it at the same time. And he was a champion at bodybuilding first. He got really good at it. Um, I mean, he won his pro card. He won kind of shows and stuff, and then he had to kind of maintain his bodybuilding for a while and like step off stage and start building strength and then focus on powerlifting instead. And that's sort of the thing, is that you can't you have to specialize a little bit, especially towards the end and towards the later parts of the competition. So this is like a problem I'm seeing with myself right now, is that I'm not quite as strong as I could be if I was focusing entirely solely on powerlifting, because I've been having like throwing in extra workouts here and there so that I can look more muscular and like carry more muscle, because I've been enjoying like having more muscle, looking more muscular, doing like bodybuilding style training and like eating a little more lately. It's been kind of fun, but everything comes at a price, everything comes at an expense. And if I am doing that, then that is kind of sort of coming at the expense of my powerlifting slightly, because if I'm training more, then I'm not going to be as recovered for my workouts. And powerlifting workouts, like especially for heavy squat and heavy deadlift, the more weeks that go by and the heavier the weights get, the more like you kind of need to rest. You kind of need to not do other things. And towards the end of a training cycle where where the weights are really heavy, you sort of need to train less or be specialized more at that point. And it's the same thing if you're prioritizing one lift, or prioritizing anything really. Like towards the beginning, you can dabble and you can have like have a few different things that you're working on, but then towards the end you really have to be focused on just that one thing and saying no to all the other things, because I mean that's the only way you can kind of progress and hit the goal that you want to hit. um, and the important lesson to realize, of course, is that you can maintain the other things. Like you'll still, I swear, like, and this is a lesson for myself too that I need to remember. Lately I've been enjoying being muscular, being bigger, carrying more muscle, doing more bodybuilding training, having bigger triceps and arms and like a big chest and back and stuff. And then, but in the past I've been pretty cool, like carrying less muscle and being stronger. And I would be stronger at that point and then have less muscle. Right now I have a little more muscle, maybe a tiny bit less strength, but then it's all relative. And at the end of the day, it's like it's progress over time. So now, like, technically right now in the present, for how strong I am, I could be stronger. For how muscular I am, I'm pretty muscular, so I'm more than I was before. But then if you look at last year compared to this year, then I mean this year I have more muscle and I have more strength, like just absolutely, you know. So um I mean it's just trade-offs really, and like you only need to specialize. I mean, the further you go with it, like whether you're training for a bodybuilding competition or training for a powerlifting competition, or if you're not even training for a competition but you're just following a program and a specific set of principles, and you're gonna reach a certain strength level or a certain, I mean, certain point, like a certain end goal, like towards the later end of that programming or training, like the later weeks of that, you're going to have to specialize more, and it's going to be necessary because that's going to be what your one goal sort of is. They call this specificity, which is like doing the specific thing that you're working on that specific goal, and having that be the main focus. And you see that in every sport. You see that in baseball or basketball or soccer or powerlifting or any other sport. I mean, you have high specificity, and you have things that like are direct movements or direct types of training for your sport that you want to get really good at, because that's the most specific thing. You know, for basketball, that's like being able to shoot a good three-pointer, and you could do different exercises. Some translate or relate more than others to the main thing that you're trying to do, but then the most specific thing that you could do is to shoot more three-pointers. It's the same thing like deadlift. You can do a lot of different exercises, but the most specific thing you can do is the 1 rep max of the deadlift. And the closer you are to a competition, the heavier the weights end up being, because that's more specific, and then the less the exercises end up being, because that's also more specific. You know, you're very much towards the end of the competition, like towards the end of the training cycle, when you're near the competition, near competition day, that's when everything is very high specificity, and it's very close to exactly what you're going to be doing on the competition day, because competition is near and you don't want to be focusing on other things, like very few things at that point. It's like sort of like if you're studying for an exam, and towards the end of the exam, like you're not really doing much else, you're just studying and you're trying to be prepared, but then it feels like earlier in the quarter you could study, and then you can go hang out with friends and you can do other things. So that's just something to think about. As someone who like has, I mean, done a few things in a few different fields, like I know that, I mean, I have a lot of different things I'm like passionate about or I enjoy doing that are hobbies or that are fun. Like it feels like the end of the world when like like fuck, like I have to lose muscle and I have to not train bodybuilding exercises and I have to not go to the gym for 3 days or something, and it can kind of suck. But at the end of the day, it's like you'll still be maintaining. It's very easy to maintain, and you have to maintain to be specific and to excel for a few days at that one thing, that powerlifting competition or whatever else you're focusing on. You know, true focus is saying no to a lot of different things, and then and it's not it's doing one thing and saying no to like everything else. But then you only have to maintain it for a little bit. You don't have to lose like your strength or abilities in it, and then once you get back, you can kind of do like a few things again. And um and uh, I can mention briefly too that like people who have multiple income sources as a business, when they have like 10 different streams of income, it's the same thing, that they build one, focus on it for a while, a few months or a few years, build that into something pretty big, and then they take their focus off it. They just maintain it. They let it run itself, hire other people to run it for them, and then they focus on a second income stream and they begin on building that. And at that point, they're not focusing that much on the first one, if at all. Like like they're maintaining it or someone else is maintaining it, but then they focus on nurturing and slowly growing and cultivating the second one. You know, the new one that they're currently working on and focused on. So yeah, those are just some thoughts. You kind of like building strength and building muscle, like they kind of go together, yes, but towards the end of the competition is where you need to be the most specific. Towards the end of the training cycle is where it's required the most and simply needed the most. And it's true for bodybuilding and true for powerlifting, or really any other sport or field that you're in.